Chapter 10 Antarctica. A quick glance. Introduction. Location. Boundaries. Physical features. Climate. Natural vegetation and wildlife. Natural resources. Humans in Antarctica. Indian expeditions to Antarctica. Antarctica is the fifth largest continent in the world, lying completely in the southern hemisphere, with the South Pole lying almost at the center of the continent. It is a place of extremes. It is the coldest, highest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth. The Southern Ocean is a continuous belt of water body surrounding the continent, over half of which freezes over in winters. It is a cold desert, often referred to as White Continent, which remains frozen permanently and kept by an inland ice sheet up to 4.8 kilometers thick. Only about 0.4% of the surface of Antarctica is free of snow and ice. The early Greeks were of the opinion that there was a southern landmass. However, this remained a mystery for several centuries, although a map published in 1531 showed it as an immense and fanciful continent and termed it as Terra Incognita Australis, or the unknown southern land. Till the 17th century, most of the explorers treated this voyage as impossible. Later, in 1700s, Captain James Cook, a British explorer, was the first person to circumnavigate the continent. The mainland was first discovered in 1820, but the expeditions were limited to the coastal regions only. In the early 20th century, there was a race among the nations to reach the South Pole. Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian explorer, won this race and was the first person to reach the South Pole. He raised the flag of Norway at the South Pole on the 14th of December, 1911. After 33 days, Captain Robert Scott reached the South Pole on the 17th of January, 1912, to find that the flag of Norway was already flying there. On his return journey, Scott and his team perished in the snow. Since then, many explorers from various countries have tried to discover the region and find out more about it. The Antarctica Treaty, signed in Washington on the 1st of December 1959 by 12 nations, permits the use of the continent for peaceful purposes and scientific research. Today it is also called the continent for science. Teams of scientists from various countries have established their scientific research stations and observatories in Antarctica. India has also established its base camps and research stations in the continent. These are named as Maitreva, Dakshin Gangotris, and Bharati. Snippet: ozone hole was discovered in Antarctica. Recently, about 70 lakes have also been discovered. Among them, Lake Vostok is the largest. Scientists have discovered new microorganisms in the ice core of Antarctica, which may throw light on the origin of life and also the solar system. Location: Antarctica's name means opposite to the Arctics, that lies entirely in the southern hemisphere, concentrically around the South Pole. The continent is circular in shape, except for the Antarctic Peninsula and the two main bays, the Ross Sea and the Weddell Sea. These two bays of the Southern Ocean divide the continent into two unequal-sized parts. The whole of Antarctica lies to the south of Antarctic Circle 66.5 degrees latitude, except for the Antarctica Peninsula, which lies to the north of this circle. East Antarctica lies mostly in the east longitude and is larger than West Antarctica, which lies entirely in the west longitude. The smaller part of the continent is called Lesser Antarctica or the West Antarctica, and the larger part is known as Greater Antarctica or East Antarctica. Boundaries. Antarctica is surrounded on all sides by the southern parts of Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and Atlantic Ocean or Southern Ocean. The nearest countries to Antarctica are South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, and Argentina, although none of these countries share their land boundaries with the continent. The narrow Antarctic Peninsula is almost close to Cape Horn, the southernmost tip of South America. Physical features. Almost the entire land surface of Antarctica is permanently covered with a very thick ice sheet. The average thickness of this ice sheet is about 2,000 m. Along the coasts, the ice sheet spreads out over the sea as floating ice shelves. Large blocks of ice, called icebergs, get separated from the ice shelves and float in the surrounding seas. The largest ice shelf on the continent is the Ross Ice Shelf. There are no coastal plains on this continent, as the shores all around Antarctica are very steep. There are many glaciers moving over the continent. The Lambert Glacier is the world's largest glacier and one of the world's fastest moving ice streams. Another important glacier in Antarctica is the Beardmore Glacier, descending about 2,200 m from the South Polar Plateau to the Ross Ice Shelf. It is about 200 kilometers long and 40 kilometers wide, making it one of the largest valley glaciers in the world. Mountains, rugged surface, plateaus, and a few bare valleys characterize the landform of Antarctica. These bare valleys are free from ice. They are called dry valleys. The Trans-Antarctic Mountains divide the continent into East and West Antarctica. Queen Maud Land is a plateau located along the coastal areas on the eastern part of the continent. The highest point in Antarctica is the Mount Vinson Massif, 4,892 m. It is located in the Sentinel Range, which is a part of Ellsworth Mountains. Other major mountains in the range include Mount Tyree, 4,852 m, Clinch Peak, 4,852 m, and Kobe Peak, 4,822 m. The table given below lists the mountain ranges in Antarctica.
Range, Parent Mountains, highest peak. Transantarctic Mountains, Nunn, Metricton, Kirkpatrick, 4,528 meters. Ellsworth Mountains, Nunn, Metricton, Winslow, 4,892 meters. Sentinel Range, Ellsworth Mountains, Metricton, Winslow, 4,892 meters. Heritage Range, Ellsworth Mountains, unknown. Queen Maud Mountains, Transantarctic Mountains, Metricton, Copeland, 4,230 meters. Tana Mountains, Livingstone Island in the South Shetland Islands, Metricton, Friesland, 1,700 meters. Queen Alexandra Range, Transantarctic Mountains, Metricton, Kirkpatrick, 4,528 meters. Queen Elizabeth Range, Transantarctic Mountains, Metricton, Markham, 4,350 meters. Admiralty Mountains, Transantarctic Mountains, Metricton, Minto, 4,165 meters. Royal Society Range, Transantarctic Mountains, Metricton, Lister, 4,025 meters.
Mount Erebus, 3,974 m on the shores of the Ross Sea, is an active volcano. Using radar mapping data of Antarctica, a research team has recently confirmed the presence of 91 volcanoes under up to 4 kilometers of ice sheets in West Antarctica. Although Antarctica is almost completely covered by an ice sheet, it is believed that beneath the ice sheet is a hidden landscape of mountains, valleys, and plains. Climate. Since Antarctica is located around the South Pole, it always receives extremely slanting rays of the sun. Temperatures, therefore, are very low all round the year. The sun never sets in Antarctica during the summer season, which lasts from November to February. The average temperature during this season is below 0 degrees C except along the coast. The sun never rises in Antarctica during the winter season, which lasts from May to August. The average temperature during this season can drop below 60 degrees C. Strong winds blow throughout the year. Only the central portion of Antarctica around the South Pole is relatively calm. Snowstorms called blizzards are common. Sometimes wavy bands of colored lights called auroras appear in the sky. Auroras in the southern hemisphere are called aurora australis or southern lights, and in the northern hemisphere they are called aurora borealis or northern lights. The level of ozone in the ozonosphere above Antarctica falls significantly during the spring season between September and November, forming an ozone hole. In summer, the level of ozone rises again. The dry and strong blowing winds throughout the year do not allow the formation of clouds over the interior of Antarctica, which result in no rainfall in the region. However, around the coasts, particularly on the Antarctic Peninsula, more moisture is available, and because of the low-pressure system, cloudy conditions are more common in this part of the continent, where rain is observed in the form of snow or ice crystals. Because of very little precipitation, the continent is also called a cold desert. Natural vegetation. The ice cover, extreme cold conditions, and very little precipitation do not favor the growth of plants in the continent. Here the vegetation consists of mosses, fungi, lichens, and a few grasses that grow in some areas for a short period when the temperature is higher. Wildlife. Although the land in Antarctica is a cold desert covered with ice throughout the year, where a very few animals can live, the seas surrounding the continent contain a variety of animal life. There are many kinds of fish like the krill and Antarctic cod. The squid is also common in the seas here. Several varieties of birds such as albatross, petrels, cormorants, and gulls come during summer to feed on these fish, but they fly away in winter. Different varieties of whales and seals are also found in great numbers in the seas surrounding the continent. These mammals, too, migrate to warmer waters during winter. Penguins are the most common birds in the Antarctica. Living in colonies with large population along the Antarctica coastline and surviving in the harsh conditions, penguins are considered to be the emblem of Antarctica. Of the total 18 different species of penguins, only 2, emperor and Adelie penguins, are most common. Other species mostly inhabit the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, where the conditions are less harsh. These flightless birds have a striking black and white coat and waddle about on land, but can use their wings to swim in. Natural resources. Explorations carried out by scientists of different countries indicate that minerals such as coal, iron ore, copper, gold, silver, nickel, chromium, manganese, lead, petroleum, and various other minerals are buried deep under the ice. Since mining these natural resources are banned by an international agreement, they have not been exploited till date. Fishing in the waters of the seas around the Antarctica is an important economic activity as these water bodies are rich in marine life. Krill and Antarctic cod are mainly fished in Arctica waters. Humans in Antarctica. The continent of Antarctica is often referred to as human void zone because it has no permanent human inhabitants, nor does it have any countries. Scientists from many countries such as USA, Russia, France, UK, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Norway, South Africa and India have set up base camps and observation stations in the continent. The scientists and technical staff at these base camps are the only temporary inhabitants of the continent. As on date, Antarctica is home to 82 research bases from 30 countries, some of which operate in the summer season, while others operate throughout the year. The McMurdo Station of the US is the largest research station and observatory in Antarctica. Tourists are allowed to visit the continent, but they can stay there only for a few days. A large number of tourists from across the world visit Antarctica every summer. Indian expeditions to Antarctica. India sent many expeditions to Antarctica. The first expedition was launched from Goa in 1981. Since then, more than 30 expeditions to the continent have been organized. During India's third expedition to Antarctica in 1983, Dakshin Gangotri was the first scientific base station of India that was established about 2,500 kilometers from the South Pole. It was abandoned in 1988-89 after it was submerged in ice. It was decommissioned on the 25th of February 1990 and since then is being used as supply base and transit camp. Maitree, also known as Friendship Research Center, is India's second permanent research station in Antarctica. It is well-equipped all-weather camp located in the rocky mountainous region called Schermacher Oasis in Queen Maud Land. It is now maintained by the National Centre for Antarctica and Ocean Research in Seoul. Bharati is India's third permanent research station in Antarctica, situated about 3,000 kilometers east of Maitree and located between Thala Fjord and Quilty Bay, east of Stones Peninsula in Antarctica. This station was commissioned on the 18th of March 2012 to facilitate year-round scientific research activity. The continent of Antarctica is shrinking in size due to the effects of global warming, and it is a matter of great concern for the whole world. Although the continent has very little material resources to offer to the world, it does offer a unique opportunity for scientists to discover and unravel many unknown facts about the Earth that could benefit humankind in future. Glossary. Cap. With the top covered in the way mentioned. Circumnavigate, travel all round the world. Concentrically, like circles having the same center. Ice shelf, a thick floating platform of ice attached to land and projected out to sea. Ice streams, a region of fast-moving ice within an ice sheet. Recap. Antarctica is the fifth largest continent in the world. It is also called White Continent and Place of Extremes. A map published in 1531 showed Antarctica as an immense and fanciful continent and termed it as Terra Incognita Australis, or the unknown southern land. The mainland was first discovered in 1820, but the expeditions were limited to the coastal regions only. Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian explorer, was the first person to reach the South Pole. The Antarctica Treaty was signed in Washington on the 1st of December 1959 by 12 nations, permitting the use of the continent for peaceful purposes and scientific research. India has established its base camps and research stations in Antarctica. These are named as Maitree, Dakshin Gangotri and Bharati. Antarctica lies entirely in the southern hemisphere, concentrically around the South Pole. The entire land surface of Antarctica is permanently covered with a very thick ice sheet. There are many glaciers moving over the continent. The highest point in Antarctica is the Mount Vinson Massif 4,892 m in the Sentinel Range, which is a part of Ellsworth Mountains. Because of very little precipitation, Antarctica is also called a cold desert. Penguins are the most common birds in the Antarctica. The continent of Antarctica is often referred to as human void zone because it has no permanent human inhabitants, nor does it have any